So I think as people of faith, we need to realize there's this great value, the sacredness of life, each life, even this, preborn life, but also the sacredness of each person and the choices we make and how do we deal with that. I'm going to just finish. There's some things this is from the ELCA's social statement on abortion, and I thought, it's probably better not just have me, but people of faith who wrestle with this and how to deal with this. This is from that statement. It says, the language used in discussion of abortion should ignore neither the value of unborn life nor the value of the woman in her other relationships. I think this is extremely significant because most times churches either come down one or the other and say, you know what, both have great value. It should neither obscure the moral seriousness of the decision faced by the woman nor hide the moral value of the newly conceived life. All right? I've heard people say, oh, can you say teeter-totter? Well, you know what? I don't think there's a bad thing in saying this is not clear. There's value on both sides. This is extremely important. Nor is it helpful to use the language of rights in absolute ways that imply no other significant moral claims in truth. Saying, we try and say rights as if the other side doesn't matter, so you can't do that. There are all kinds of issues involved. Like Adam had brought up earlier in that first clip, that, there were the other issues, the woman signed a contract. We got to look at all sides of things in each situation. A developing life in the womb does not have an absolute right to be born, nor does a pregnant woman have an absolute right to terminate a pregnancy. The concern for both the life of the woman and the developing life of the womb expresses a common commitment to life. If you're committed to life, you need to be concerned about both lives. This requires that we move ahead.
Right.
Getting there. Beyond the usual pro-life versus pro-choice language in discussing abortion. Next one. Later in the statement says this. The position of this church is that government has a legitimate role in regulating abortion. Right? The government does have a role. A major challenge is to formulate policy regarding abortion that will have sufficient consensus to be enforceable. Furthermore, any proposed regulation should contribute toward the intended goals without generating problems worse than those it seeks to address. Right? It should not make the situation worse than it is. In the case of abortion, public policy has a double challenge. One is to be effective in protecting prenatal life. The other is to protect the dignity of women and their freedom to make responsible decisions in difficult situations. Pursuing those ends is particularly formidable because our society is so divided on this issue, and because women, people of color, and those of low income are so underrepresented in legislative and judicial processes. So often the people making these decisions are not those who face the choice. And that's not right. In its advocacy regarding these issues, the church should exert every effort to see that the needs of those most directly affected, particularly the pregnant woman and the life in her womb, are seriously considered in the political process. Laws should be enacted and enforced justly for the preservation and enhancement of life and should avoid unduly encumbering or endangering the lives of women. I know it's a little wordy, but I think it's very helpful to say you need to think of everyone in this and that no extra burden is placed on someone over others. Because of our conviction that both the life of the woman and the life in her womb must be respected by law, this church opposes the total act of regulation of abortion. It opposes legislation that would outlaw abortion in all circumstances. It opposes laws that prevent access to information about all options available to women faced with unintended pregnancies. It opposes laws that deny access to safe and affordable services for morally justifiable abortions. It also opposes mandatory or coerced abortion or sterilization. And it opposes laws that prevent couples from practicing contraception. It also opposes laws that are primarily intended to harass those contemplating or deciding for an abortion. And last, it says, the position of this church is that in the cases where the life of the mother is threatened, where pregnancy results from rape or incest, or where the embryo or fetus has lethal abnormalities incompatible with life, abortion prior to viability should not be prohibited by law or by the lack of public funding of abortions for low-income women. On the other hand, this church supports legislation that prohibits abortions that are performed after the fetus is determined to be viable, which means it could live outside the womb, except when the mother's life is threatened, or when lethal abnormalities indicate the prospective newborn will die very soon. Beyond these situations, this church neither supports nor opposes laws prohibiting abortion. All right. Basically what it's saying is we need to protect both these. As you get later in pregnancy, we need the life of the child becomes, if it can live outside the womb, it needs to be protected. But all those places in between saying, you know what, we just don't know enough to say that we can tell everyone how they have to live this. One more. The last thing it really looks up, and I think is essential to us, says that the gift of our diversity. is because we are united in Christ through faith. Because we're together in Jesus through faith, we have both the freedom and the obligation to engage in serious deliberation on moral matters. In other words, we need to talk about this. We need to talk seriously about these things. That induced abortion, the act of intentionally terminating the developing life in the womb, is one of the issues about which members of this church have serious differences. And it's true. In every church there are serious differences among people on where God is and what's right and what's wrong. These are also found in our society. These differences hold promise or peril. In other words, it can go really bad or it could be good. Our differences are deep and they can divide. However, they're also a gift that can lead us into constructive conversation about our faith and its implications for our life in the world. In other words, we can choose to let this divide us and break us apart, or we can choose to let this be a way we as people of faith in different places can continue to love each other through difficult things and bring us together to be open and accepting of each other even as we differ. I'm going to invite us, I guess one thing I didn't say at the beginning that I think these past weeks, these issues we've kind of taken more than 1 week to deal with it, and I think sometimes that's too much, even though there's much to do with it. So we put a lot of things out there today. But I really think we need, as people of faith, wrestle deeply with this, but remember too this call to love each other through the process. That more often I think as people of faith we're going to be much more helpful by not doing things like, whether it's the protests on either side, which only I think brings more heat than light. But how do we walk through people in these difficult places? If someone's in a place of crisis, how do we help them through that? If they decide that whatever their choice is, how do we walk with them and help them to choose what brings the most life in the situation? And that people are most likely, so that even though the scriptures already lift up life as sacred, the people are most likely to make choices when they have others around them to support them in that journey. The Lord be with you. Let's pray.